Hey, you're listening to the Talk 20s podcast. If you want to join in on the community discussion, head over to our YouTube channel, just search Talk 20s. Or if you're driving or working and you just want to listen to the audio, you can still stay here on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. For full transparency, we love bringing you guys loads of free weekly content. But in order to do this, we do work with brand partners who you'll hear from in this episode, including an advertisement from Zopa Bank. We hope you enjoy this week's episode, and over to future Gabby to intro today's guest. Welcome back to another Talk 20s episode where we're going through our findings from our 18 to 35 trend report that we've been doing recently. We have so many stats on you guys, and if you listen to last week's episode, you'll have heard all about the stats that we've got on everyone's career and everyone's money situations. But this week we're going through relationship and living situations, which is super exciting. But before we dive into all of this research, we are gonna do a little cheers.
If you're watching this, you'll see us really awkwardly reaching.
A big stretch with our Riviera Peach Iced Tea. Honestly, like, I know technically we're paid to say this, but it's genuinely the best iced tea I have ever tasted.
Yeah, we've got a producer in the background nodding head viciously because it's...
and Sam's not paid to say this, but we are. But Sam is agreeing. Yeah. Because it is, honestly, I talk about it all the time to an embarrassing amount, but I am obsessed with iced tea. Absolutely obsessed. So tasty. And it's so good. So let's have one last week before we get into the episode. Thank you, guys.
I also this is just a quick question for everyone on YouTube. If you can comment this below. Do you watch ASMR videos? Why do you watch them? And what ASMR videos do you watch if you do?
Georgia's convinced we need an ASMR version of this podcast. I've told her we don't.
Not of us. If we could get like celebrities to just do like a little 5-minute segment.
How is that?
Like if they could expose
content ideas all the time. I'm not sure this was.
Like exposing the secrets, but like ASMR into the mic. ASMR. Anyway.
Okay. I think if you like that idea, let us know down in the comments. But should we dive into the research?
Relationship and health.
Relationships, absolutely. So we asked people to talk about a lot of different successes and struggles in the past year. The successes, all to do with relationships, but in this sense, we're not just talking about relationships, love romantically. No. We're talking also about friendships, family relationships, and relationship to yourself. Is that how you say it? Relationship to self.
Just a relationship to self.
Yeah. So we've got lots here. So here's your successes. So we surveyed 1,000 young people between the ages of 18 to 35. And these are the results that came out from it. So 37.3% have gained more confidence in the last year.
That's such a good one. Good. Confidence goes into everything.
So many different things.
Yeah.
34.1% have made new friends. I love that. And I also think that it's a question we get asked a lot, is like, how do you make new friends?
Yeah.
And it honestly it's probably a confidence thing as well, about putting yourself out there and just kind of, putting yourself in situations where you can. Whether that's related to work, or whether that's related to going out more, whether that's related to starting a new hobby, that's really cool. So I think the two are intertwined.
I think if you're confident as well, you're confident to follow up with relationships.
Yes.
I don't think that's spoken about enough. Like, you make a relationship, but can you sustain the relationship?
Yeah, like when you meet that friend of a friend and you go, I'll drop them a message and be like, do you want to go for a drink sometime? Or,
when you have that instant thing and you're like, we're friends now. Yeah. And then you don't speak to them and you see them 2 years later and you do it again.
I should send that message.
Yeah, but when you're confident, I feel like you are more confident in like, they like me. They want to be my friend.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. For sure. I love this one. 21% of people have left something toxic. I mean, we don't know what that something toxic was, but I'm like, congrats, you guys. Yeah, like, whether it's probably a relationship, or it could be a situation. It could be a friend. It could be a housing situation. But yeah, I think that's a really good thing. 21%. Yeah. Amazing. I think this number's quite low, but I don't know. 20.8% have said they've achieved their goals. I mean, well done to that 20%. But I mean, I think it's possibly because we put too high expectations on ourselves. So some of us, I haven't achieved a lot of my goals because they're just too ridiculous.
Yeah, but because we never write our smaller goals down, so we don't realise that we're achieving them. Like, remember when the last time that we done this market research report, and it was like, we had to put it in this new one, more emphasis on these are the types of goals that you can achieve, because in the previous one we didn't have that, and everyone was saying that they'd not achieved any goals, and we were like, leaving something toxic is a massive thing, and actually making a friend and speaking
all of
to your
these
family
things,
more.
like, just because they're not obviously like the big things, they're still wins.
Yeah, but just because you've not bought like a Range Rover or a house, like I'm sure you've still achieved some.
You don't want a
goals.
Range Rover anyway. Apparently they always break.
Really?
That's what I've heard. My brother had one, and literally he drove it for like 4 days, and then it broke, and it sat on their drive for 6 months. So
my dream car is a Jeep.
My dream car is never going to be a Range Rover after that. 9.6% of people have found a loving relationship.
Keyword is loving as well.
I love that. Yeah. A loving relationship. Yeah, keyword being loving. 2.5% have got married.
Which I thought would be higher. I thought it would be higher.
Also, maybe it's because I'm obviously getting to the back end of my 20s now, so it feels like everyone is getting engaged or married or
saying
like
that
so
though,
many different things.
No, because I'm obviously 22, and I went on Facebook for the first time in months the other day, and I don't remember why. I scrolled and I seen 6 people have either bought a house or they're engaged, and they're my age, and I was like
that sometimes though, doesn't it? Like you just scroll and you just see so and so's done this and so's done
such
that.
Such a Facebook thing to see as well, isn't it?
It is such a Facebook thing to see. And also, here's the next one. This is another Facebook thing to see. 2.4% became a parent.
That is also a Facebook thing I've seen. I've seen that, and then I've clicked on their profile just out of like nosiness, or to be like, congratulations.
What's the first thing you look at when you look at a baby announcement?
What's the first thing I look at?
I always look at name.
I've never
name and whether it suits the face of the baby. That's always what I do.
In all honesty,
I scroll and I go, Milo. Yeah, it looks like a Milo. Betty. Oh no, I wouldn't have gone Betty. Genuinely, that's what I do.
Comment below if you also do that, because that is, yeah, I don't know. This sounds quite nasty, but I think I just scroll past. I just don't think I like.
Congrats.
I don't even say congrats. I'm just like, okay, and.
Okay, and. Oh God.
No, I think. I don't know. I don't see it enough. It's only on Facebook. You better not do
that when it comes to me having my kids.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
no scrolling past when it comes to mine.
The only
you better be looking at that going, that baby suits that name so much.
I'd hope I'd see it in person and not on Facebook.
I wouldn't post it on Facebook anyway. I never go on it.
I would be so upset if I just see on Facebook that you've just had a kid. I'd be like, have you been hiding this from me? Just so
I hide it from you. I see you every day. No, sure. Unless
like
I get
a Hailey Bieber.
Maybe I get a surrogate.
Or you do a Hailey Bieber.
Know, and then I'd be like, surprise.
Yeah. Is that why you have that jumper on? We've got so off track.
Too posh to push.
Too posh to push.
No, that's it.
No.
Too posh to push.
No.
Hello, gorgeous listeners. If this is the first time you're tuning into the Talk 20s podcast, allow us to introduce you to our headline sponsors, Zopa Bank, home of the Smart Saver account. If you're a long-term fan of the podcast, you'll already know about Zopa's Smart Saver, which lets you save into personalized pots and boost your savings in exchange for a notice period to access your funds. The longest notice period is 95 days and offers the highest interest rate. To find out more about Zopa's Smart Saver, download the Zopa app. We need to tell you that you need to save a minimum of £1 and the interest is paid monthly and is subject to variation. On with the show. We just talked about the amazing successes. This is breaking down the struggles. And it actually upsets me, and we said this last time, that more people will admit to the struggle side of things than they actually will some of the successes, even though we deliberately put successes on there that were, you know, like maybe smaller than you would necessarily call success. So this is huge. Probably one of our biggest figures we've got. 67.4% have struggled with stress in the last year. Stress.
It makes so much sense, though. Like, it makes so much sense. Like, and I also think it would actually be higher. Like, I've been thinking about this recently. How do you know if you're actually stressed? Like, clinically stressed? Because I think a lot of us just go, oh, I'm stressed. This is stressing me out so much, that is a stress. But then if it happens every day, that is, like, really something that you should think about, like, improving, because it can lead into your mental health and your
physical health as well.
Yeah. This is TMI, but I didn't get a period for 2 months because I was stressed. Like, I literally went to the hospital and she was like, you're perfectly fine. Are you stressed? And I was like, isn't everyone stressed? And she was like, no, like, it will literally cause you to not have periods. And I know with men, I'm sure it causes other, like, fertility issues or, like, you know, it causes weight gain, it causes depression, it leads into depression.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, it's a huge driver, and I think for that many people to admit that they're stressed is the question: do we have a problem in the UK. If that many young people are feeling stressed,
100%.
Do we have a problem?
And how can we help you?
If so,
please comment below, like, what areas in your life stress you out. Like, is it people? Is it your job? Is it just like a feeling of every day feeling so overwhelmed and stressed? Like, we will try and get some people on to like unpack this a bit more.
For sure. 59.3% of people felt overwhelmed.
Makes so much sense.
It leans into the stress thing again, doesn't it? But like, I think the overwhelmedness, if that's a word,
it can't be now.
Overwhelmedness. I think it comes from being bombarded by social media, the media, constantly. When you think back to parents' generations, I feel like you just didn't have a phone in your pocket that was pinging to say you got an email, you got a text, or you got a WhatsApp, or your friends just had a baby, or it just wasn't like. I think I saw Simon Cowell talking about how he doesn't have a phone, and he says he doesn't
because he's got like a PA.
He has a PA. Yeah. He said if something's important, it will get to me, and that is very old school mindset. But back in the day, like it literally was like if it was an important piece of information, you would find that information out. It's not like,
isn't it weird that like a couple of years ago that would be like unprivileged to have that, like, you know, I only found about something like if it comes to me, whereas now you're like really privileged if you have that like that accessibility to just not having to worry about something coming to you, and it'll eventually come to you if you need to.
Exactly. No, you're right. There is kind of a whole flip and shift.
Yeah, like that's completely flipped.
But I think for us, it's because like our phones are constantly pinging left, right, and center. Like we're constantly bombarded with information. How can you possibly take it away?
Yeah, our phones are literally just an extension of us. And I don't know if you can relate, but I've got so much better now because I've genuinely just on the weekends I really will not go on my phone.
Yeah, same.
Even after work, like I try and not go on my phone. I'll end up going on my iPad or I'll read a book. But I used to get this thing where like every time my phone would ping, I genuinely get that like fight or flight, like anxiety, like straight away. And it only stops when I've done like a phone detox, basically.
The best thing is switch off all of your notifications as push notifications
and set up the automatic the automatic do not disturb. That's probably been the biggest thing for me. Like every night at 6 p.m. my phone automatically goes on like do not disturb mode.
Mine does that after 9. Best thing ever. Right, that's so good. 57.2% have struggled with loneliness in the past year. Now, actually, when we last did the survey, there was still a little bit of like a COVID hangover, is what we like to call it, where we really did feel like a lot of the stats we felt that were coming out of it were massively linked to kind of a sign of the times. Yeah. Harry Styles there. But they really were. Like, it was kind of like what was going on in the world and kind of a lot of people feeling that way. But I think since COVID, I feel like there's been more, in my life anyway, there's been more opportunity to get out, to meet people, to do more things. And so I would have thought the figure of loneliness would have gone down, but it's still quite high. Like 57.2% of people are feeling lonely. I wonder if that's loneliness from actual physically not being around enough people, which is obviously the COVID thing, or whether it's actually like more of like a mentality thing where it's I don't feel that people around me get me, like, because you can be in a room full of people and you can still feel lonely.
It's a lot harder to put yourself out there, even though I know you were saying like it feels a lot easier, but I also think because they've not got that confidence of like putting themselves out there, they're just feeling lonely because it's harder to do.
And I also think this couples up with, you know, only just shy of that, 56.5% have had poor mental health in the past year. Now, is it that all generations have had poor mental health, or is it this generation in particular have a higher percentage of poor mental health, or is it that this generation are more willing to say that they have poor mental health?
That's like
it's a tricky one,
trickiest question, because I think it's like a big staring pot of all of the above, to be honest.
50% have also struggled with their body image. Another massive one for people in their 20s in particular. Because I think
for both men and women.
And we've spoken to, like you say, both men and women on the podcast about challenges with body image and what we look like, and I think there is this massive kind of pressure on young people to look a certain way and kind of stuff, and I think that can be a lot for people. So literally, 50% of people are struggling with that.
Literally Matt Hall Matt Hall's podcast, which will be like 3 weeks ago from when this comes out. He was a bodybuilder, and he spoke about the fact that most insecure men go into bodybuilding to try and feel some sense of like, oh, I feel better about my body image. But he was like, I struggled the most with my body image when I looked the best. And he's like a man admitting this, like, which is amazing for other men, isn't it? Because you don't really hear many men speaking about it openly.
For sure. Another one that makes me really sad is 45% of young people have in the past year have felt like a failure.
Yeah.
45%. No one's failing.
I know.
No one's failing. You're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Doing exactly what you're meant to be doing. And even if you're not, it'll lead to something better.
100%. It makes me really upset that 45% of people like said that they felt that way in the past year.
I think even the fact that you're alive.
Yeah.
Even the fact that you're alive and you might not feel that other people, like, you've got a big support system around you, but like you are so loved and you're not a failure.
And you have so many things going for you. Like, you don't be measuring yourself up against all these other people. Like, you are you, and that is what makes you great and what makes you special. That feeling like a failure should be 4.5%, not 45%. And there shouldn't even be that. It's 0.45. There should be non-existent.
I think
no one should feel that way.
It comes into everything. It's what we were saying on the previous episode about having like our identities attached to our careers. Like, we should not be attaching ourselves to all of these things around us. We should just try and feel better in ourselves.
And the last one from that list is 40.2% have struggled maintaining friendships. I think this is a tricky time in our lives with your 20s, because it kind of often feels like a bit of a transition decade where you're going from school or university to kind of stepping out into the big wide world of adult life. And for many of us, my friends have changed a lot. Like, if you'd asked me who my friends were in when I was 21, 22, some are the same, but a lot of them are new, and a lot of them are different, and a lot of them are now like more in like closer relationships that maybe we're just starting out back then, and some are much more distant that were really strong back then. So I think naturally your 20s is a period of time where friends kind of come and go. I mean, we talk about it a lot on the podcast, but that saying that like your friends are there for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I think it's like, it's difficult sometimes maintaining friendships, but not every friendship is supposed to last till the end of time, and it's not a failure if it hasn't. It just wasn't
failure again.
Exactly, it just wasn't meant to be a friendship that lasted forever. But I think the most important thing here is that, like, I think there is a quote back up the top where people had started making new friends. So 34.1% have made new friends. So I think that gives me hope that while some things are difficult to maintain, there are some new friendships being made as well.
We will try and do an episode on like maintaining friendships, like maintaining connections and relationships.
For sure. Let's talk about socializing habits then, because in our last episode we asked Sam what he'd do with £1,000 of money with no strings attached. He's our producer, and he said that he would go out and spend it, blow out on like a big night out.
But his real answer was
real answer was that he'd buy a guitar. He told us after the episode.
He got too shy.
So he said that. But I don't think that's far wrong. Some people probably would do that.
Yeah.
And we asked you guys about whether you spend more time with friends, whether you spend more time with family, or what you do with your free time, basically. 67.5% said they spend time with their friends. 53.9% said they spent time with their family. Now, you could tick both in this option, so that's why they don't add up. But I read this stat the other day, and I think this is absolutely crazy and something that I have to constantly keep reminding myself. And it's by, I don't know who this person is, by the way, so don't quote me this, but his name is Don Felker. And he said, you probably never thought about this, but around 90% of the time that you will have spent with your parents was done from the ages of 0 to 18. So literally past the age of 18, you've only got about 10% of the time with your parents left, because so much of it was condensed into that time that you were a kid.
That's crazy.
So like, because especially if you don't live at home anymore, if you live somewhere else, you might be seeing them for an hour on a Saturday, or you might be seeing them for a weekend where you go and visit, and all of that time then added up. Then that comes to like an extra like 10%. And obviously at some time it's likely that they will go before you. So there's only a small percentage of time that you've got left with your parents past the age of 18. So I was like,
I hope this doesn't send anyone into a crisis.
I know, I hope it doesn't. But I just think that's hopefully a little reminder to be like, spending time with your family right now. Like, a lot of people, I think we even had someone say it on the podcast once. They were like, I'm going to forego spending time with my family. I literally, if you know who this guest was, you are a true 20s Talk 20s fan, because you'll know that I pulled him up on this. But he was like, I'd rather, really keep working on my business. My family will still be there, like, at the end of it. And I was like, but what if they get sick, or what if they aren't healthy? I was like, you want to make sure that you are at least giving some of your time to them. So
I think even if you don't get on with your family as well, it's forgiving them for whatever reason you don't get on with them,
for sure,
and realizing that, like, it's crazy to me as well when we think that you get to like a certain age in your 20s and then it's almost like your family actually don't know who you are, because you're not spending that time with them. So you are this whole other person that you've grown into yourself, and they're still viewing you as this child that they once knew that maybe had these completely other like morals and ways of thinking. But maybe that's why you're not gelling. Maybe they just don't know like who you are now, and you've got to treat it as a new relationship, like a new connection. Like, obviously you've still got that love there, but it's important to then be like, let's spend some quality time and actually get to know each other. Like, me and my mum recently have just kind of like started speaking more as like friends. Like, she's telling me about like her 20s and I'm like, oh, crazy.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. I love that. No, I do think it is. I do think you kind of have to reconnect. Yeah, for sure.
Like if you just went to uni, you're probably this whole other person. It's like, and then, some people might feel like frauds almost when they're going back home and they're like pretending to be that old person that their family know them as.
Sometimes when I go back home, feel like I am stepping back in time.
Yeah.
Like, and it is mad in a way.
Stepping into like old skin.
Yeah, for sure. And I wouldn't say that I love that either. But
yeah, it'll cause you anxiety, and then it'll cause you to not spend as much time with them.
Yeah.
But
I have to keep reminding myself that they're like, my family aren't going to be around forever. Yeah. So,
maybe it's time for you then to just be like, here I am. This is me.
No, for sure. We also asked people about alcohol and drinking.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you tell me what you think about these stats. So 12% of people never drink alcohol from our survey. 12% never.
That's higher than I thought. Like, they've never drank alcohol.
Not never have, just
they're
never
sober.
In the past year, they're sober.
Okay. I think that's I thought then, to be honest, I thought that would be higher because a lot of people now are going down the sober route. I feel like I see that all over my socials.
I think the next two kind of make sense though, because 30.8% drink less than twice a month, and then you've got 46.1% more than twice a month. So I think they're kind of, there's still people who are drinking.
It's really quite split. But yeah, then, to be fair, quite spread. It?
Let's talk about living situations. So for you guys, 37.3% of you rent, 22.2% of you own, 30.7% of you live with family, and a stat that we pulled out of this was also 9.8% of you live alone.
Not many people are living alone.
No, not many
to
people.
be fair.
Can we afford to live on our own? It's expensive.
It is expensive.
Yeah, for sure.
More people are living with family than I thought they would be. I think there used to be a massive stigma around living with family, but I think it's kind of not as bad anymore, which is good.
Relationships. 46.6% of people were in a relationship. 45.6% of people are single. And 5.5% of people are married. And there was a really, really small percentage of people who were divorced as well.
Yeah, I think it was like 1.7%. Really you can see it on the report if you download it.
It was less than 1%. This was crazy as well. 93.5% didn't have kids, which is quite high. I think people are having kids later and later, aren't they? But we did ask a question to all the people about kids. So of these, 57.6% want kids. 20.4% might be open to it eventually. 12.5% don't know, and 9.5% said no, and they don't think they ever will want kids. I think it's really good that people are kind of able to kind of like speak and say what they think about that, because I think often people, it's assumed that you will have kids or will want kids and stuff like that, and I think it's really good that people are, making their own decisions about that.
Yeah, I think the big one is 20.4%. Like, might be open to it eventually.
Yeah.
And like people are kind of being just like, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe in the future, like you said, like people are having kids later on in life.
Absolutely. And the last thing we ask people is what you consume social media wise. The biggest one. Loads of us spending so much time on Instagram. 88.5% of people go on Instagram daily. That was compared with, and I thought this was slightly different, but 55.1% go on TikTok daily.
I thought that would be higher.
I thought it would be higher, but it's because, and this was massive, 24.6% never go on TikTok. So people have never downloaded the app. And I think if you haven't downloaded it, you just won't get into it, because I think once you do, you're hooked. So if you are in that never group,
please can you comment below on YouTube why you don't use TikTok.
And on that note, if you are watching on YouTube, 70% of you watch YouTube daily or weekly, which is why we are doing so much more for YouTube nowadays. Absolutely. And this is a funny one because I just said earlier, I never go on Facebook ever. I don't think I've gone on Facebook properly for years. I sold something on Facebook Marketplace at the weekend. It was like the first time I've been on it in months. 42.9% of people still use Facebook daily, which to me blows my mind because I never go on it. But I think you just don't.
Gabby rolls. If you're not watching, Gabby rolls her eyes every time she mentions Facebook. She just doesn't get it.
I think I made a mistake of accepting a lot of people onto Facebook when I was younger. So going on it now is just not fun.
Yeah, you don't know.
I just don't know what's going on. It just doesn't feel like a nice feed. So yeah, I never go on it. But anyway, those are our surveys. Those are our results from the 18 to 35 trend report. We have so much more included in the actual report, which you can download for free via the show notes below.
And why might people want to do that?
Why might they want to download it? You might want to see these numbers, like not just audibly. You might want to see it. You know, we've got graphs, we've got tons of different stats in there. You might want to send it to a friend, more information, kind of thoughts and feelings that we've pulled out of it as well. And you can use it to kind of, take note on like your own life.
If you're in uni, you can use it for any like studies. We give you permission to do that. If quite a lot of you guys do marketing and stuff like that, these stats will be really helpful.
Absolutely, as well. Absolutely. But we hope you've enjoyed this episode, or these 2 episodes that we've done for you with breaking down all these stats. We will be doing it again. We will be doing it more regularly. And we hope it's really helpful in you feeling less alone in your 20s.
Yeah.
Bye. Thanks for listening, guys. Have a great week.